We got the Thursday night preview box office numbers in for Blue Beetle, and so far things aren't looking too good for the new DC movie, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a bomb just yet, most likely, but there's still some things that could go in its favor, but I'll get more into that in a little bit. So right now, this article from Variety, Blue Beetle takes flight with 3.3 million in previews, so not necessarily the best results. Barbie has reigned over the box office with historic hot pink theatrical run over the past 4 weeks, but now it's facing its biggest challenge yet. DC's latest superhero film, Blue Beetle, the comic book film led by Cobra Kai star Zillo Mariduena, picked up 3.3 million in Thursday previews in the domestic box office. And then the article goes on to say that it could make around $25 to $32 million over its opening weekend, whereas Barbie is expected to make around 17 to 20 million this weekend. So yeah, it will beat out Barbie for the top spot. I mean, it's not necessarily the greatest feather in its cap, considering Barbie's been out for over a month, but still, I mean, it's something. I mean, it was #1 at the box office, so you can't take that away from him. And for the most part, I mean, I really don't have anything against this movie. I mean, it doesn't seem like it's something for me. It just looks kind of like a generic superhero movie. But if this does well or does badly, I mean, I really don't care too much about it. I'm just kind of curious what the new DC is going to be after James Gunn's vision kind of fully takes over. And I know with this movie, if it succeeds, then there'll probably be a place for it. And I actually would like to see Zillo Mariduena in more stuff, because I'm a big fan of Cobra Kai and he does a fantastic job in that show. And I've heard for the most part, he actually does a pretty good job in this movie as well. And that's one of the things I've heard about this movie, is that from people who have seen it say the cast does really good job in this. But again, $3.3 million is not the greatest sign for this when you consider something like The Flash, another DC superhero movie, brought in just a little bit more on its Thursday night preview with $3.4 million. And this ended up going out to be a huge box office bomb for the studio. Both Shazam! Fury of the Gods and Blue Beetle cost the studio around $120 million in the production budget. Then when you factor in marketing, distribution, and what the theaters take at the box office, both these movies probably needed to make around $400 to $500 million in order to kind of just break even. And obviously Shazam! Fury of the Gods only bringing in $133 million globally fell well short of that. And it had a little bit better Thursday night preview, and both of them had around the same opening weekend, or Blue Beetle is projected to have the same opening weekend as Shazam! Fury of the Gods, which got around $30 million domestically. Now, one thing that Shazam actually has going in its favor is so far the word of mouth is a little bit better than Shazam! Fury of the Gods, because if you look at the Rotten Tomatoes score for Shazam, it has around 86% audience score for it. Whereas Blue Beetle, right now, it's currently sitting at a 93. And if you even click on it and see the all audience score, it's about 88. So it's really not too bad. Now, granted, these early reviews tend to skew a little bit higher, as the people who initially see it are the ones who are more excited about it. So it does get a little bit higher than as more audiences see it and more views or reviews come in, then it starts to taper down a little bit. But either way, I mean, 93 isn't bad. And like I said, from the reviews I heard, people were saying it's just kind of a decent movie. I mean, nothing super special, but a decent superhero movie. And one thing that's interesting about this too is it was specifically made for a Latino market. And we saw with Shazam! Fury of the Gods, its international gross was only around 56% of what it made. So I'm kind of curious about Blue Beetle, what it's going to do internationally, particularly in like the more Spanish speaking countries, like in South America or in Central America, Mexico sort of thing, because they said they are making it for a Latino market, making a Latino superhero. So that might actually play a factor into it, because we've seen other movies like The Meg and The Meg 2, for instance. Those movies did it okay domestically, but they made a bulk of their money in China because it was co-funded by a Chinese company and it was made for a Chinese market. And that's kind of why they made it for. And we might see that in the future, where American studios are making money or making movies, particularly for overseas markets, because they think those are more lucrative or something like that. I mean, it works sometimes. That might work in this situation, whereas Shazam! Fury of the Gods didn't necessarily have that going for them. So it kind of failed internationally, but we might see something like that with Blue Beetle. Like I said, once we see the final numbers for this weekend, and also like what the numbers are in its overseas market, then maybe we can kind of adjust our figures. But right now things look pretty bad when you're just going by its domestic take. And again, I really have nothing against this movie. It's just, I think a lot of people don't want to go see it, at least domestically, or not interested in it because for the most part they think like, well, this is basically going to be one of those movies it's kind of retconned out of existence once James Gunn's DCU just kind of takes over. So they're probably not interested in seeing it, or maybe it's just not as big of an event for them to actually come out to see it in theaters, not like something like Oppenheimer and Barbie or whatever, because people aren't just going to go to theaters all the time like they used to. I mean, I think 10 years ago this would have been fine, but nowadays it's one of those things. People only want to go to a movie if there's actually something that really drives them to it, and this doesn't seem like one of those movies that does it. Like I said, it just comes across as a generic superhero movie, and for the most part I hear that's what it is. It's a generic superhero movie, and while it's done well, it's really nothing to drive an audience to the theaters. But let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below, and if you like this video, make sure you click the like button, share the video, and subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date with the latest news. Thank you.